Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a great pleasure and an honor to welcome you, Mrs. President. You were given the choice, Mrs. President, you were given the choice and you selected a theme which is the youth and the process of integration in the European Union. The youth in your country and in the region of the Western Balkans. Maybe my first question will be very simple. Why did you select this item? Why is it important from your point of view?
Probably all of you heard the question, why I chose this item. Let me explain you why. Recently, I had a lecture at Columbia University, and the title of my lecture was Western Balkans Marathon towards Brussels or waiting for Mr. Godot. I chose this item, why? Because it's well known that we in the Balkans have always been a part of Europe. Not only geographically, but also historically and culturally. So I find this division, East and West, as artificial. And I think that today, this is totally normal challenge for those in EU family to accept us back to our home. And that's why I name integration as reintegration or reunification. That is so normal. And I find this political entrance into EU as the crown, and that's why I was not seducing my students, teaching them for, I don't know, more than 30 years about inspirational sui generis political system, not state, EU, but believing in that. And what I believe in is Copenhagen criteria. And what I believe in is a rule of law instead a rule of man. That's why, as a former member of the Venice Commission for many years, last week in my speech, I said that we have fought against a rule of man or against Shylocks or against Venetian merchants. And that's why really today, being faced to security problems, because we are not speaking only about enlargement issue, because today, EU has to be bigger, larger, deeper, and we are the first on its path, because Western Balkans is here, despite the fact that maybe somebody could explain me the meaning of this syntagma Western Balkans. I really don't know what it means, because firstly, in 2000, it was defined as former Yugoslav states which were out from NATO and from EU. After that, when Slovenia entered, Could you imagine changing geography? Minus Slovenia plus Albania. After that, minus Croatia plus Kosovo. And today I don't know what it means. Probably you know better than me as an expert in geopolitics. And I found it, and I still find it as, how to say, periphery of the periphery of Europe. But when I say that we belong to Europe, I have in mind even the name. Europe, small Europe, is from that region, from Balkans region, and was kidnapped by Zeus, as you know, by Zeus, yes. And he was transformed into bull. And so, normally, I think that we have been and we would like to be in EU. And after so many years, during the communist period, being encouraged to put end to that transition towards communism, utopian transition, I really believe that we are not entering in another transition. But my country became, or was given, or has got status, candidate status in 2005. So the babies now are 20 years old students, my students, and are still waiting answer to our basic question. So we are stuck. We are in Procrustean bed. We are, I don't know what, in front of the door of the Brussels, and really, many politicians would want very much to sound like poets, saying that EU is unfinished symphony without Western Balkans, or it is a hileless hill. But I am in Paris, and I don't expect at this conference, peace conference, a hileless to be hit by Paris, like it was in mythology.
But what is the importance of the youth in that respect?
Oh, indeed. The youth in Western Balkans is composed or personificates not rebels without cause, without reason, but rebels with cause. Indeed, teaching them not only comparative constitutional law, but also comparative political systems. Even during the former Yugoslavia, that subject existed at our faculties. Indeed, they also recognized themselves as Europeans. Their perception is my perception. We perceive ourselves as Europeans. And we are facing, unfortunately, all these 30 years, facing with exodus. The brightest students, the best students, are leaving Western Balkans. Maybe 1/3 of the population left Western Balkans. Why? Led by motto ubi bene, ibi patria. If it is better in France, they are ready to go to France. That is one reason. But sincerely, when we entered the transition and democratic consolidation, we forgot what Dahrendorf once warned, that you could change the constitution, maybe you could also enter into liberal economy, but for functional democracy, decades are needed. And we entered as lupus in fabula, unprepared. The burden was authoritarian heritage, or maybe Titoism, like Bonapartism, for example. Then political culture, a lot of patriarchalism and parochialism, then fragile civil society, then partitocrazia, an Italian system model that explains that you could not see where the party finishes and the state begins. Two powerful individuals and vulnerable or fragile institutions. So decision-making process located in some personalities. And then the warning of Lord Acton that each power threatens to corrupt you. Absolute power absolutely corrupts the people. Then the profile of leaders, crisis of leaders. Leaders who were not devoted to Respublica, but wanted to become rich through a night. Also, in this process of separation of powers, yes, the power was mostly located in executive, in the government. British scientists or people say that the prime minister is Luna interstellas minores, that it is a moon among small stars. But in Balkans sometimes they were like Amon-Ra, like the suns. They're like the sun, so powerful. Also, meritocracy was something forgotten, and spoil system appeared. Sometimes when I want to sound to be a cynical, I say, what would you like? What we would like, maybe, because Americans have had one assassinated president, Garfield, by unsatisfied member, maybe, I don't know, who supported him. And then they adopted the Pendleton Act, saying that, yes, like you have here an excellent school. I saw in your CV that you were there, Anna. So what we need is meritocracy instead spoil system. Because then devoted soldiers to party leaders occupy the most important posts, but the best students are leaving the country. But also, I have to say that they lost the hope that always dies, the last or not. Why? Waiting to start or waiting to become members of EU. That is something discouraging them. And then, could you imagine, at the moment I have seen some data, more than 45% of Macedonian young persons think that we would never become the member of EU. 48%. But if you compare this to 90s, then the percentage was higher. Why? Because of the double standards. That is because of something that Professor Joseph Weiler, an American, you know well him, says that sometimes this enlargement process reminds him to a game between a rich and poor brother, and the rich says, listen and do. But he thinks also, and I agree with him, that maybe we, candidates for EU or candidates for candidates, also care about you and maybe have some ideas, and we could be heard.
And give a contribution.
Yes.
Make a contribution.
Yes.
What do you think would be needed precisely to go faster, to unblock the current, if not impasse, at least very slow motion of this process?
Firstly, I very much like what Mr. Sorbonne, what Mr. Macron said before the students of Sorbonne in 2024, but also previously, that EU is not just a bureaucratic or political machinery, that EU is philosophy. I fully agree with this, and that EU and its work, existence, is based on values and principles. That is what sometimes is neglected. And I always say that, yes, please pay attention to agreement on EU, to preamble, alinea 6, that says that EU will respect the national and cultural identity of the states and nations. Also, that EU is unity that respects diversity. Then, Article 4 that says that EU will respect constitutional structures. Also, one in the preamble articles says that EU will respect dignity and integrity. Also, that EU will encourage members of EU to conclude or to sign agreements with the neighbors based on the principle of reciprocity, and even devoted to principles and values. In the Lisbon Agreement, there is Article 7 that says that in the case of violation of the basic principles and values by members of EU, 1/3 of the MPs in the Parliament or the Commission could arise procedure before the European Council. Why? To suspend or to limit the rights of the country that is violating the principles. We have many times been faced to violation of principles by some members of EU. Why? Because they are threatening us with a veto. If you do not change the constitution, if you do not do this, you will not become a member of EU. And my proposal or my recommendation is always, let's try to be a little bit Scandinavians. Because Sweden, Norway, and Finland were so supportive for Baltic states. And so I'm really surprised. I expected to be understood by the neighbors and to be supported by the neighbors. But it doesn't happen. So I have already mentioned double standards. I think that EU has to recall the members to Copenhagen criteria, because my students, the youth, need what? Rule of law, separation of powers, independent judiciary, decision-making process located within the strong institutions, participative political culture. Those are liberal economy. Those are principles we badly need. But to use membership in EU due to revise the history is something both against the basic rules, base principles and values of EU, but also of our constitutions. And it is against the Charter of UN and also the basic documents of UN. That is what I...
We still have 3 minutes. Is there a question in the room? Monsieur. Very short, please.
Bonjour.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank Mrs. President for coming to Paris. My question is for both of you, What is your feeling in the country of what blocked the Macedonian negotiations with the EU in 2019 because of the new enlargement process? At the time, the Republic of North Macedonia was ready to negotiate, but Bulgaria vetoed this.
Quelle garantie qu'un État membre de l'Union européenne
What guarantee can we have that an EU member state will not do the same for bilateral reasons in the future?
You have 1 minute for this a difficult question.
No. It's not difficult. It is inspiring. We signed so-called agreement on friendship and good neighborly relations with Bulgaria in 2017. And in 2019, also, we changed not only the constitution, but something that has never been changed, the name. Why? Because then there was this, we signed and ratified the Prespa agreement. And in this agreement, there is an article that says that we can organize a referendum. And just let me tell you the question on the referendum. Very interesting question. Are you for membership in EU and NATO by signing this agreement? As a law professor, my comment is that when somebody is asking me, am I for membership, it means that those in EU are for my membership, and now they need what? Legitimacy deriving from the citizens. And we entered NATO, but EU is not only far away from us because it was their membership. Now, again, we have to change the constitution, that's the demand, if we want to start negotiations. Bulgaria, yes. And everybody is reminding us, pacta sunt servanda, that we have to respect, indeed, both agreements. Let me tell you something. There is Article 7 in Prespa agreement that says, the term Macedonia for the second party, nameless party, means territory, people with own history, culture, and language. And now we have to speak with Bulgaria about our history, imagine, culture, and language. I have no answer, really. It is, if there is pacta sunt servanda, please try to check this agreement on good neighborly relations and friendship. There is no article there to change the constitution, but now we have to change the constitution. And imagine, this demand is included in negotiation frame and in conclusions for us. So really, how to say, in dubio res.
Thank you very much, Mrs. President. Unfortunately, we have to stop here, but it was a very interesting conversation.
Thank you. I was also honored being with you.